Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey listeners, ever wonder what it would be like to blow up your comfort zone at the tender age of 50? Well, we did just that. When our last kid went off to college, we hit the road in search of a new hometown. Now we bounce from city to city and bring you along for the ride. This is the Skip Town All-Stars podcast.
Welcome back, All-Stars, to the Lake Placid edition of Skip Town. How are we doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm so excited to talk about this place because I remember as a young kid watching the Winter Olympics.
I know, and I got a bunch of info on that.
Oh, so this will be fun.
Yeah, but you actually have boots on the ground experience there. We stopped in Lake Placid on our way back from hijacking our friend Patrick's vacation. This is part 3 of that installment, 3 of 3. So we actually forced Patrick to stay in Lake Placid with us on a Saturday, I believe it was.
Oh, yeah. Patrick had already planned on being home, cozy in his apartment on Saturday, ramping up for work on Monday. And we were like, no, we're going to stop in Lake Placid.
Yeah. So we left Quebec City.
You really have mastered that.
I just said it wrong twice.
But you fixed it, so you're doing well.
Okay. Anyway, we left Canada, and
that's better.
We got to Lake Placid. First off, the Adirondacks and upstate New York is probably, we've been to Oregon. We've been through parts of Washington, the Pacific Northwest. I thought that was the most beautiful place on earth I'd ever seen, at least in maybe in the United States that I've ever seen. I got to say, upstate New York gives the West Coast a run for its money. It does. And back in the day when the kids were little, we would always, and we've talked about this before, look at those emails we would get from like Yahoo News or AOL News. Remember AOL News? Oh, I really dated myself. You did.
I really did. And it always had the 10 prettiest cities or 5 safest cities, and it never failed. There was always a city in upstate New York. It was usually Albany, but there was always a city there. And so we both were looking forward to driving through it, stopping, having lunch somewhere. And we did that. We stopped in a couple of places in upstate New York and just had lunch or grabbed a bite to eat. And then we ended up staying in Lake Placid. So I could not wait. All those years that I'd seen articles, I finally got to be there, boots on the ground, like you say, in person. And it really was everything I thought it was going to be. Honestly, every photo I've ever seen, every article I've ever read, northern New York, upstate New York, it was great. It was. And we rolled up into town, and right away, though, we were kind of met with sort of a mishmash of, you could tell places were lodge-centric or sort of Airbnbs. Like, you could tell the houses that are you could tell they just rent out, the property or whatever. That's like every place, versus, though. I know, but there were some really amazing houses around the lake. Mirror Lake, I think. Yeah, no, it's Mirror Lake. Yeah. Because when you come into town, you're immediately met with this beautiful lake, and everything surrounds a lake. So as a tourist, you think, Lake Placid. Yeah. And you quickly learn it's not Lake Placid. It's actually Mirror Lake. Yeah. And it's gorgeous. So the way the restaurants are situated, you can sit on the deck of almost any restaurant and have a beautiful view of this lake. If you live on the West Coast, I would equate it to Lake Tahoe. Yeah. That's how it really looks. It's surrounded by pine trees. The water is blue. The houses are picture perfect with a beautiful little dock. That is really how Lake Mirror looks in downtown Lake Placid. And it's not just the restaurants that have a beautiful view of the lake. It's also the clothing stores. It's little coffee shops. They really do situate the town for the view. I was like, oh my God. Even the stores across from the lake were elevated. Just like some of them were elevated on the mountain. So you could turn around and see the lake. It was quite pretty. Yeah. And the walk through downtown, the little Main Street area was fantastic. Okay. That, again, looked like something out of a magazine, right? Did. Like, it looked like something, would you see photos of Aspen or Park City or Vail? It looked like that. It was Lake Placid, though. Yeah, exactly. And obviously, we weren't there in the winter, but I can only imagine it really is a wonderland when you're there, especially if you're a skier or, there for the winter sports of any sort. Yeah. Agreed. So let's talk about, we checked into our place. Yeah. And
it was nice. We had an Airbnb. We said we weren't going to do Airbnbs anymore, but we did.
Well, we talked about this because we had Patrick.
Yeah.
We had Patrick.
I know. We had Patrick to babysit.
No, Patrick had us. Okay? Patrick had us. And in those situations, when you're traveling with other people, you have to do a house. Otherwise, you're in separate hotel rooms and he could be on one floor, you could be on another. And it's always kind of nice when you're traveling with somebody. Okay, I'm speaking for Patrick, so I should not be speaking for him.
He'd
He'd probably
not
want a
share that
hotel room.
sentiment.
I think
he
he
probably
wanted
his own room. He'd been with us for 2 weeks at that point.
I think he wanted his own hotel
Yeah.
room. No, it wasn't quite 2 weeks. It was only like 10 days.
Okay.
But yeah, he was ready to have his hotel room. But we were not ready to give him his own room.
Oh, we kidnapped him.
Yeah.
I mean, as
So-
we said before, we've totally kidnapped him.
So that's why we did an Airbnb. So the three of us could share the space and talk, and have dinner and stuff like that.
Yeah. So walking around though was fantastic.
Did you like that Airbnb, by the way?
It was fine. I mean, it was a little pricey for just one night, but if you're only staying at an Airbnb one night, aren't they all pricey,
100%.
given all the fees and all that stuff?
That's why we don't do it.
But I really didn't have the option. Like I needed something where I could finish my job for that week. And
it was a second floor.
it was.
So you had a really beautiful patio, and we did not see Mirror Lake, but we could see the mountains. And when you looked out, almost any window in that rental, since it was a second floor unit, you could see just trees for miles, mountains. It was beautiful.
Yeah, and there were a couple of breweries right there that we could see off of our back patio, back porch. So the owner was there on property, really nice guy. Like I said, it was a little expensive, nothing to write home about, but it was perfect for the one night we were going to be there.
Yeah.
So you found a little excursion for yourself and Patrick, though. Why don't we talk about that?
Okay, so when we got there, I was super excited because I did not realize prior to leaving Los Angeles, because we've done this now, this will be our second or third time hitting a Olympic city where the Olympics were hosted. So Montreal was also one of them.
Salt Lake City.
Yes, Salt Lake City was the first one. So what I realized is that these places that host the Olympics end up keeping the facilities that the Olympics were played in.
Yeah, I'm smiling because you hear of all these stories about the Olympics around the world that are held in like Qatar or when China had the Beijing Olympics. There are all these like outlying, where it's like mosses growing up the side of some of these buildings that they erected just for the Olympics.
And so what we've experienced is that Americans tend to reuse those buildings, and they reuse them either as museums and homage to that.
Amish?
No.
Amish people? They use it for the house Amish people?
They do. Homage. Isn't that right? Homage? Homage?
Right?
Right?
Pay homage.
Homage.
Homage. Okay, thank
as
you,
the French
Phil.
would say.
Thank you. Anyway, so they either have it as a museum or pay homage to that year's Olympic that was held, that year's Olympics that was held in that city, or they actually use it for whatever activity is needed, not needed, but whatever activity was. What's the word I'm trying to say?
They turn it into training centers.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. So that's been our experience. The very first one was Salt Lake, and we were like, wow, they're actually using the Olympic stuff here, the Olympic activities and their training. So when we got to Lake Placid, I thought, I wonder if they're doing the same here. And sure enough, they were. So here's what I did immediately. I called the Lake Placid Welcome Center.
Yep.
And I asked them if the ice rink had figure skating, training going on for the Olympics. And they did. But at the time that I was calling, we had just missed it. It was like from 10 to 12. And I called at like 12:30. And she said, okay, there's like a high school hockey team. And I said, are they training for the Olympics? And she said, no, they're playing other 10th graders. And I said, okay, I don't want to see that. I said, I don't care about that. I can get that anywhere. So then she said, okay, then you should go to Lake Placid Ski Jumping Center. And I said, what's that? She said, oh, it's a training center. Everybody there is training for the Olympics. Now,
not in the same location, I presume.
No, it was probably like the ice skating rink was right near our Airbnb, within walking distance.
Yeah.
This was driving distance. So we had to go up.
Okay, I didn't realize you guys. Okay.
Yeah, we had to go up in the mountains, maybe like by 2 miles. It wasn't far, but we couldn't definitely not walk. And it was, up the mountain.
Right.
Well, we're going in September. There's no snow. So I'm thinking to myself, And we have a small window. Like there's 2 different places for the ski jumping. And she was very clear. She said, you take the ski lift up and you see those jumpers, or you can stay down on the ground and see the training that's being held there. I'm like, there's no snow. Like, what are we gonna actually see? And it was a short window. Like I said, it was 2 hours. I think it was like from 2:30 to 4:30 that they either allowed the public or they were training.
Right.
In any case, we had this window. Okay, so we get there. The bottom level, I say bottom level because it's ground level where they're training, because you do need to take a ski lift to go up to the top of the mountain where they're training. But the bottom level, they were, I don't even know how to describe it. So they had a ski ramp that was curved up. So it was like the aerials, like when people are doing flips and stuff on their skis. I don't even know what that's called. What's that called when they're doing flips and stuff?
When they're doing like tricks in the air and all that.
Yeah, and their skis.
Those are like they're jumping moguls and stuff.
Okay,
right?
so what is that called though in the Olympics? I know it's like some freestyle. I think that's what it's called, freestyle.
Yeah, freestyle.
So how do you practice that in September when it's 80 degrees out? In a pool.
Yeah.
In a pool. So I have this on my social media if you want to take a look, and we have it on YouTube Shorts, where the kids, and they're young kids. I mean, the ages for that was probably, 14 to 17, and they were going down a little ski ramp that curved up at the bottom,
right?
And they were doing their flips and everything in the air with their skis on, landing in a pool. So it was like an Olympic swimming pool, and they were landing with their skis on in the pool. It was the craziest thing. I mean, I could not believe it. So I was
So what do they do with it in the
creative.
winter when the pool is frozen over or whatever?
They don't use it then.
They don't use that,
no.
at all?
No, that is
So
just...
they don't just cover it with dirt or something,
No, it looked pretty well maintained. They're not throwing dirt in that, I can assure you.
Got it. Just for summer use only.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I was
Okay.
like, who thought of this? Like, this was brilliant. And then you take the ski lift up to the top of the mountain, and now this is the speed. Like, this is where they're doing 1,000 miles an hour down the ramp, and then they shoot like a rocket. And then you know how their body's like all angled and their skis are up. Okay, they land on AstroTurf.
No way.
They're going 1,000 miles an hour, and they land on AstroTurf.
Are they fully clothed?
They are
because
fully
if they
clothed.
wipe out, they're going to get turf burn like big time.
Oh, they're going to have skin ripped off.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they're completely from head to toe. But these kids, it's crazy. And this was a little different. These weren't younger kids. These were a little bit older. So we had like 17 probably to like 20, 21.
Okay.
And their coach was standing on a platform at the end of the ramp, and he would whistle. All he would do was whistle.
And then the next
they
one
would
come down.
I was like, what if the coach doesn't know how to whistle? I guess you'd use a regular whistle. No, he was whistling. No,
I thought that's what you meant. He was using like a referee whistle.
He was using his mouth.
Oh.
I was like, that's impressive.
That seems like a dying art form. Like my dad was able to do that, but I don't think my brother or I don't think either one of us can do the whole like.
No, he didn't even use his fingers.
Oh, he didn't?
No, he did whatever he did with his mouth and his tongue, and he whistled, and the kids knew. And it wasn't even like going down the ramp. It was actually walking up the stairs. They would wait until they heard his whistle, and then they'd go up. And sometimes he would radio them because they all were equipped with radios as well. And he would radio them when they went down and like did their jump, and they were down at the bottom on the AstroTurf. And he would say things like, you need to be more angled. I didn't like the way you started that run. It was really crazy because you're watching the Olympic hopefuls. Right. These are kids. Now they're covered. You don't know.
Yeah, because you couldn't see their names on a leaderboard or anything like that. They're practicing, they're training.
There was one.
So you don't even know if you saw the next Shaun White there or whatever. I know I'm well aware he's a ski boarder. So,
thanks.
But yeah.
Okay.
Lindsey Vaughn.
You're right.
She does slalom, I think. I'm totally like butchering. I'm not a winter sports person.
So let me tell you, on that note, one of the people was in one of the trainees was in all red, and that person looked amazing. You can't see them because they have the goggles on and everything else, even though it's warm out.
Coming down the hill looking like Darth Maul.
Right. It was incredible. And then we came down, she was flying, and we're on the ski slope going, the ski chair going down, and she's flying through the air. Well, we didn't know if it was a boy or girl. And we get to the bottom, and her parents are waiting there for her, and she takes her goggles off, her hat, everything, and it's like a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah.
It was incredible. So she probably was one of the younger ones, because a lot of the people that we saw, the kids, they'd have their goggles and their hat off as they were going up, so we can kind of see how old they were.
Right.
I said to her, I looked at her, I go, that was incredible. That was incredible.
Are you guys to talk to her?
Yeah. And because we
cool.
literally got off the ski lift as she just landed.
Right.
And her parents are there. And Patrick and I were like, oh, you're amazing. And you know what she said? She's like, oh, I could have done better. Or something. She said something like, it was just
like a true athlete.
I know. It was just like, she does smile. She's like, like that. And her parents were like, like they both.
We've seen better.
I was like, oh my God, this is why she's doing this. This is why she's doing this. So it was pretty darn incredible. I'll never get to see that again. I saw it during the summer when they're not doing it on snow, which I thought was even probably more challenging for these kids.
Yeah.
Then they have to adjust when the snow starts to fall. I don't know how they do it. This is why they're Olympians.
Yeah.
They're able to pivot when they need to. I mean, they're doing it on AstroTurf, and now in 3 months or 4 months they'll be doing it. Oh no, 2 months they'll be doing it on the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Olympics, shall we?
Oh yeah.
Because hey, there's no better reason to go to Lake Placid than to relive the 1980 Winter Olympics.
Yep. How old were you?
10. I was 10 years old.
Yeah, I was 11.
So for all you Gen Xers right now, we're going to walk you down memory lane to a time when Reagan had just taken office, and oh my gosh, the U.S. hockey team, the Cold War was in full effect, right? At that point,
Yeah.
The hostages from Iran had been returned home. But, we were still in this stalemate ever since the late 60s or whatever with our nemesis, our arch rival, who it's just so funny how history repeats itself.
Has it ever gone away?
I don't think it's ever
Rocky
gone away.
even had a problem.
We thought it went away with Boris Yeltsin and all that other stuff. But the minute Putin got into power, here we are again. Deja vu all over again. So the 1980s Olympics was famous, obviously, for the miracle on ice. We're going to talk about the hockey team in a second, but it's really important to sort of emphasize just how at odds we were with Russia at this point. Rocky IV had not come out yet.
Oh.
No, Rocky IV didn't come out, I think, for another 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was really like the pinnacle.
Oh,
like,
yeah. When Rocky
like,
fought.
No, yeah, when Hollywood's like, no, really, Russia, we hate you, And
Rocky's
like Sylvester Stallone is like, yeah, big middle finger, watch me kill Ivan Drago in the ring, Such a great movie. I could talk about that all day. I'm getting way off track.
Let's go back.
I know. I could recite almost line for line.
I know you can. How many times have you seen that movie?
I have a confession.
What's your confession?
Never seen any Rocky movie ever.
You've never seen any Rocky
What?
movie?
Not a single one.
Oh my goodness.
Why? That's like child abuse. I have to have a talk with your mom.
I mean, I was born in '87, so like it was already over.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess
By the
that's
time,
true.
I was even old enough
Your
to
first
watch
indoctrination was like Rocky 5 or 6.
Yeah, he
or
had like
whatever.
a robot or something.
Rocky Balboa.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was that was Rocky 4. He had a robot actually.
Okay, well then I
Yeah.
did see that part.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
thought that was
so you
corny.
never had nostalgia? I mean, have you ever seen Jaws?
Yes.
Okay, so Jaws is a nostalgia no matter how old you are. You never had nostalgia for seeing Rocky? You never was like, I should probably see this because it is a classic, iconic movie.
That's a good point. I
guess not.
Yeah, because I like old movies. I mean, like The Goonies was before I was born.
Goonies.
Oh.
Temple of Doom was one of my favorite movies from Indiana Jones. That was
Yeah.
before I was born. Jaws, absolutely. The original
Why-
Star
why-
Wars trilogy, yeah.
I think it's time.
Maybe we need to have a watch party.
I think
I
so.
think so. yeah.
I think so.
You definitely got to watch 1 through 4.
Okay.
And have you seen any of the Creed movies?
Nope.
You haven't?
Nope.
Oh my gosh. Every Thanksgiving for the last few years,
It's our go-to.
I've subjected my daughters to that on Thanksgiving.
No, we
weekend.
actually all enjoy it. What do
I
you-
enjoy it.
They do too.
I don't know if they do.
They do. They wouldn't go if they did. They like Michael B. Jordan.
They do.
That's
like-
why they go.
They do like Michael B. Jordan. Yeah. Yeah.
So he could be in anything, and I think they'll go.
Okay. So in addition to your watch party for the Rocky movies, you should definitely add Disney's Miracle to that list if you haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
No.
You have
No.
not.
But
Phil, I need to talk to your mom again.
I know. Look, I had to watch a whole bunch of hood movies and church movies. So ask me about Baby Boy. Ask me about Don't
Friday.
Be a Menace, Friday. I got you on those. But you ask me about Miracle. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I will say, hockey seems to be among the most homogenous sort of sports when it's just a sport that winter white kids normally play, right?
And it's like north of
Yeah.
Mississippi or Iowa, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, because it's got to be cold for you to,
Yeah.
because everybody who's a hockey player, I mean, back in the day when there wasn't global warming, they were playing hockey on frozen ponds.
It's true.
So you have to
Yeah.
go to a really cold place and,
you had to be in Michigan or the New England states or something.
North Dakota,
Yeah.
Wyoming.
I knew out of all my friends in college, I had one friend that was like a rabid hockey fan.
Really?
Yeah, that was it. Like just one guy. He loved the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But anyway, so in 1980, there was a sort of brewing discontent between the U.S. and the USSR. And the Russian hockey team had been so dominant for, I think, 4 Olympics or something like that, that it was to the point where, okay, so first let me just say, it's not like the U.S. Olympics now where they allow professional athletes to play. So you see the dream team for basketball, Michael Jordan, then LeBron James, then Kobe Bryant, all those guys all played for, it never used to be that way. So in the United States, the rules were you could not be a professional athlete and participate in the Olympics.
That for years.
So our hockey
that just
team,
changed recently, like in the 90s or something, right?
I think it was in the 90s. Yeah. Our hockey team was comprised of college kids and amateurs, like guys that would play, sort of minor league hockey.
Like plumbers.
Yeah, they probably had to support themselves.
Okay.
They probably had a side hustle.
Got it.
While pursuing their hockey dreams and trying to get into the National Hockey League. So,
Got it.
So all that to say, we are already David coming into the Olympics because, clearly Russia is the Goliath, right? They've won so many. It's not just they beat the U.S. handily for several Olympic stretches in a row, but they had clobbered Sweden at points, Finland, like places like Norway, places that notoriously have hockey built into their,
they were just
Winter
known
Olympics.
to be like the best hockey
and
players.
It was full on, a lot of them were taking performance enhancing drugs. It's when steroids had exploded on the scene. Yeah. There were a lot of, they touch on this in Rocky IV, Phil.
Oh, okay.
Where they're shooting Ivan Drago up while Rocky is in the mountains pulling a log or whatever.
Oh.
He's pulling a big tree trunk and they're shooting up Ivan Drago. So it was like, it was a stigma and it still is to this day. Like there have been doping scandals among Chinese athletes, Russian athletes,
That's right.
Yeah.
The Russian team got banned from the Olympics.
Yeah.
The wrestling team.
Yeah. So it's a thing there. Like
they're cheaters.
Anything for the glory of the motherland, they're willing to do.
Okay.
Hey, how's your audience in Russia?
They're coming at us.
Oh yeah, they're among the bots and haters that love us. So that tells us we're on the road to success when the Russians have noticed us.
They leave comments.
Yeah.
It's been great.
They do, especially when we post things about Ukraine or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, so all that to say, there wasn't much of an expectation for the United States coming into these Olympics, especially because, you had sort of all these great athletes from these other countries, Sweden, all this other stuff. Let me put it to you like this, and I'm kind of fast forwarding to the end a little bit, but we won 6 gold medals in this particular Olympics, and 5 of them were won by Eric Heiden, the speed skater.
Oh my gosh. Wow. We did not have a very good
And the 6th one was what?
Let me guess.
Yeah. The hockey game we're talking about. So,
well, I was going to say we didn't have a very good Olympic team going into 1980s if one person won 5 Olympics.
Yeah. He set a lot of records. He was an amazing athlete. And actually, side note, he's actually a physician for the U.S. speed skating team now. He wanted to be a doctor? He practiced medicine. Yeah, like he practices medicine. He's like the team doctor for the skating team, for the speed skating. I know, isn't that awesome?
He's like a real overachiever.
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't relax ever. Talk about not sleeping. That guy doesn't sleep.
All right, so
leading up to this game, the Russian team actually had an exhibition match, again, like Rocky IV, with the U.S. team at Madison Square Garden, like a couple months before this Olympics. Okay. And they beat the U.S. team 10-3.
Oh,
that's a huge, that's a lot.
Well, usually in a hockey game, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't watch a ton of hockey.
Yeah.
We are, Blackhawks fans, of course, Blackhawks fans. Blackhawk fan. I'm of course you're from Chicago. You have to be a Blackhawk fan.
You do.
Okay, but normally the score is like 3-2.
Yeah.
Like 3-1. 4-2. Like they're really close and they're not high because it's so much. Because you're usually blocking. It's hard to get the puck in the net. You know.
Right.
So 10-2.
10-3. Yeah.
Yikes. Okay.
Yeah. They were getting clobbered.
Murdered.
I mean, everybody who watched the matches would say it looked like grown men playing children. And it kind of was. I mean, you're talking about college kids.
Okay, so it's 2 months before the Olympics.
Yeah. So
a lot happened in that 2 months.
Yeah. I think what happened was the U.S. was sort of in their circle. I know it was Sweden. I think it was Finland, Russia, and the United States. So, whenever they put those pools together, there's always one team that sucks.
Ours was ours.
And we were supposed to be the team that lost to everyody, I think, that year is what was going on. But these kids, they tied either Finland or Sweden, doesn't matter for the sake of this conversation. And then they ended up beating one of the other teams. So that set them on a track to play the Russians.
For the gold.
To be able to be in the game for the gold. Now, a lot of people, that's a mistake. A lot of people think that we beat the Russians for the gold. We did not. We actually beat them to advance in our pool to play Sweden. I think it was Sweden the next week. We actually had to play another team after that. And that's when we won the gold. Yeah.
Oh, see.
We did not beat the Russians for the gold.
That's crazy.
You know what that reminds me of?
What's
when 2004. In baseball.
Oh yeah.
Boston and the Yankees were in the ALCS.
Yeah.
Boston won that series and ended up winning the World Series. You don't even know who they played in the World Series in
right.
2004.
Because that was the series. Right.
Yeah.
It's the same. I mean, it could have been argued for games in the NFL, like the years the 49ers versus the Cowboys were, especially in the late 90s or what have you, where it's like Steve Young versus Troy Aikman, and it just depended on what year it was. And those always seem to be the de facto Super Bowls those years because, you never remember who they destroyed. I know Buffalo was one of those teams a couple times, but.
Wow, I thought this whole time that they won the gold by beating the Russians.
They did not.
That is crazy because it was such a big upset that it took over. It overshadowed who they really played to win the gold.
Yeah. So they actually had to play Sweden the next game, and that's how they won the gold. And they handled Sweden, no problem. But what was great about the game, like facts that I didn't know, interesting stuff, is the game had already been over for an hour. But because of the way they had to broadcast the game, Americans were seeing it. Like, you could never have gotten away with this today because social media, it would have just exploded all over social media before it ever was broadcast. But at that time, Russia would not relent when it came to broadcasting the game at a certain time so that it could be broadcast in Moscow or wherever. So the game had actually been played and it was done. And even Al Michaels didn't get to enjoy the win for the U.S. team because he had to call another game immediately thereafter. Like, he didn't, like, Sweden and Finland were playing to see who the next person was that would play the U.S. for the gold. So long story short, a lot of people, like, the game was over. A lot of people didn't even realize the U.S. had beaten Russia until well after they had actually beaten Russia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Kind of anticlimactic for those kids playing.
I know.
Like, and a phone call back home, like, how expensive. Oh, well, no, they're in Lake Placid. So I guess the news, I'm thinking like, oh, they were overseas playing, but no, they were in Lake Placid.
Yeah, they were still here, but for whatever reason, there was sort of, ABC sort of had their embargo when it came to media, and they did a good job of control.
Wow.
Like so many, I remember, feeling like it was a live game. Like if you were watching it at
I did
home as a
too.
kid,
I remember.
everybody, and that just goes into like how we feel like there's a ripple in the matrix with some things. Sometimes everybody remembers, like I saw that game live on TV.
Yeah.
They did not. It was pre-broadcast.
Wow.
Or it was pre-recorded.
I thought it was live also.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, second period was utterly dominated by the Soviets. And then they scored a goal early in the second period to make the score 3-2. At this point, they had been, trading punches early on or whatever. And then in the second period, they just started peppering the goalkeeper. I don't know if you remember his name, Jim Craig.
Okay.
Everybody sort of like, if you're a sports fan, you're like, oh yeah, I know that name. Where do I know that name from? That's where you know the name from. Jim Craig. He was a hero in this game because all these these big Russian dudes were like firing shots at him, bang, 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 and he was able to just,
what did you just lay in front of the net?
I don't know.
Literally.
I don't know. I mean, I have to watch a game again. And the documentary is great. Miracle on Ice. Highly recommend. The U.S. only managed 2 shots on goal the whole period. And then the Soviets, being huge favorites, everybody realized in the crowd that the Soviets could just break this thing open at any point and score 5 goals like they had done at Madison Square Garden a couple months ago. And
so it was coming. Like everyone was like, this is coming.
And so another fact about the game is that everybody said, oh, the crowd was so wild, the crowd was so loud and all this stuff. That's factually incorrect. The crowd was quiet most of the game. It wasn't until 12 minutes left in the third period where the U.S. tied 3-3 that the crowd realized, oh my gosh, we could actually beat these guys. Like we could actually win this game.
That's when they went crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then
all right, so what was the score?
The final score was 4-3. So when the U.S. scored that go-ahead goal, they had to hold on until the very end. I think there were a few minutes left or what have you. And then after that, Lake Placid emptied out and it was berserk and everybody was celebrating there in town. But, our collective memory says we were celebrating too, but we weren't.
So I remember going to see Miracle, and I don't know if you remember, I took you
to...
The
Disney movie based on the game.
Yeah, I took you to El Capitan in Hollywood. And
Is that where we saw it?
We saw it, yeah.
Kurt Russell plays Coach Herb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember that the players, that's why I said to you earlier, oh, weren't they like plumbers and stuff? Like they were just, there was, I thought, if I remember correctly, there were real college kids who were like, that's what they played in college was hockey. But then there was like regular Joes, like who just, they needed a team. And so these guys joined. Am I wrong? I thought that's what the movie also.
Yeah, there were some guys that were
like regular guys.
Definitely like, I mean, they needed to field a team and, they obviously couldn't find it throughout the college ranks to where they were happy. And so they did talk some people into coming and joining and trying out or whatever.
That's so great. I mean, that's a Bad News Bears like story, right?
It really is.
But wait, did the Bad News Bears ever win? Because didn't they lose in the first Bad News Bears? They lost the first time, or did they win?
I don't remember.
But it's better than a Bad News Bears because I think the Bad News Bears lost in the first Bad News Bears movie.
If they did, which I don't remember, yes, it's definitely better than the Bad News Bears. There's no question. They beat the Russians.
I'm thinking of The Replacements.
Oh, The Replacements.
That reminds me of The Replacements with Keanu Reeves.
I don't think I saw that.
Yeah, I remember that movie.
Because they were a bunch of scrubs. Because the league went on strike.
Yep.
They didn't have any players, so they just
when
got
the
a bunch of
NFL
random
went on
people.
strike. Yeah.
Maybe I did see that movie. Okay, it sounds familiar now.
Yeah.
Okay, so then did they come back 4 years later and win again?
I
Do
don't
you
think
know?
they did. No,
Okay.
I don't. Nobody remembers 1984, so
Okay.
I don't think so.
I don't. Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was a great story, and especially it helped the U.S. wrap their arms around sort of we're better than Russia and we are the superpower and all that stuff. But it was great. I mean, it was a great sense of national pride for us. Obviously, the Olympics always are. And other than Eric Heiden, we had nothing else to celebrate those Olympics. So,
well, do you remember going through the stores in Lake Placid and seeing a lot of posters of Eric?
Yeah,
I did, and I thought, why are they just like I didn't understand when I was in there because I didn't know the history you research this, and you're a sports fan, so you know. I never would have known his name, but I do remember, and I don't know if you do, his jersey was everywhere in the stores, his poster. I mean, they had the team posters too.
Yeah.
They still, to this day, if you go to Lake Placid, it is very much about that hockey team there.
You got to get your merch.
Yes. Yeah. So I remember seeing posters of him. Now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they actually, even to your point, they renamed the Lake Placid Olympic Center rink the Herb Brooks Arena in 2005 after Coach Brooks.
Nice.
So who coached that legendary team. You brought up the movie, and there's also a documentary. So clearly I need to define this. The documentary that you can see on YouTube is called Miracle on Ice. Do you believe in miracles is Al Michaels' signature line at the end of it when we scored the go-ahead goal. Upon further reflection, he said, I would have never said that line had I not been in the moment. It sounds so corny listening to it now. But it's iconic.
Yeah,
it was iconic. It was an iconic sports broadcasting moment. And then there was the Disney movie starring Kurt Russell as Coach Herb Brooks. And I have some...
And that movie is called Miracle.
And that movie's called Miracle. I'm sorry, I left that part out. Right. And so Curb.
That's Kurt and Herb.
Curb.
They're dating.
It was released in 2004. And Coach Brooks had tragically died in a car accident the year before. So it was actually dedicated to him. He died in 2003. Kurt Russell took a pay cut in that movie because 800 to 1,000 extras used as fans at the hockey game were going to get a brown bag lunch, but he decided he would pay for a hot meal for them. Presumably because it was cold in the arena. I'm not sure.
Wow.
So pretty cool. Did not know that.
The executive didn't take a cut. The producer didn't take a cut.
Absolutely. Disney did not take a cut.
Disney made so much
money.
money.
Michael Ovitz or whoever was at the helm definitely did not take a cut.
Nobody cared about them eating a cold brown bag lunch, but Kurt Russell did.
Kurt Russell, man of the people, for sure.
Wow.
And so over 280 miles of film, Phil, there's this thing they used to shoot on called film. I know you're younger. They used to actually load the camera with spools of this stuff, and frame by frame, it would sort of ratchet out. And
they would cut manually with scissors. Yeah. Did you ever hear about that?
I had to learn when I went to broadcasting school.
Oh, they taught that?
It was in your broadcast history class?
Well, no, we actually had to edit with that.
Oh, you did?
We had to cut tape, physically
on
cut
a flatbed?
tape. Yeah.
Nice.
It was awful.
Wow. Why did they waste your time with that?
Good question. Well, actually, the radio station here actually still when they used, they didn't even convert it to DVD tapes. They still use the old school. Yeah, so they still use those.
That's so crazy because if you're not Martin Scorsese, you're not using or
James Cameron
or Christopher Nolan. Like, why are you using film? You know what I mean?
So anyway, 280 miles of film were shot for Miracle, more than any other Disney movie in history.
Why?
I guess because they had to capture all the hockey play and stuff. I think they just used a lot of film to recreate the game.
Having to retake those shots over and over again.
Yep. More than 4,000 men auditioned for only 20 roles.
Oh, people were into it.
As the U.S. hockey team, yeah.
I have to watch that again. Like, it has been 20 years, I believe, since I've seen it. I have to watch. Okay, after this, we're going. Phil, we're doing a viewing party with Miracle. Then we'll do Rocky Balboa.
But it brings so that those are kind of I do have some facts on Lake Placid real quick because we are a travel podcast. I do have some stuff we should talk about there, but that's the summary of the 1980s Olympics, especially for all you millennials out there who listen to us. Thank you very much, and we're probably a bit too young to remember or know about any of this stuff. So I feel pretty good. Like as a Gen Xer, it's just part of the fabric of who we were.
It is
when we were kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Winter Olympics 1980, Lake Placid. I think everyone remembers those games. I think the show's over. We're done. It was literally the hockey team is all we're going to talk about.
We're not actually. There are things to do if you go to visit Lake Placid that we didn't get to do because it wasn't winter. For instance, Mirror Lake has a 2-mile loop that you can skate 24/7. You can go any time of the day and skate this 2-mile loop if you want.
Skate it with what?
Ice skating in the winter. The town cleans the track. The town actually cleans off the track.
So if you want to do a skate at 3 a.m.
Yep. A 2-mile skate.
Oh, okay. If you get up at 3 a.m,
what could go wrong, right?
if you get up at 3 a.m, you know who you're skating with, right?
Ooh, like creepy people.
No, you're skating with
with the actual athletes.
Yeah,
you're right.
Skating before school starts.
Yeah.
Isn't that incredible?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Yeah.
You guys want to take a guess at something?
What's that?
Can I ice skate or no?
Oh, I think you can.
What do you think, James?
I think you cannot.
I can.
I would figure you can. Yeah. You're pretty smooth. Like I see you doing stuff and you don't bump into anything. You're not.
What are you trying to say?
You're not like someone I know. You're very smooth. And yeah, James is like a bull in a china shop. So no,
I was more into the rough and tumble sports. I was the wrestling, football.
I know, but if you see Phil is like a big boy. You know what I mean? How tall are you? 6'6"?
6'3".
Yeah.
You're 6'3"?
Yeah.
Well, I think you're taller than that.
He's taller than me for sure.
Okay.
I'm 6'2".
So, when you take a person that's that tall, it is just mere volume of where you stand in the world. You're going to bump into stuff. You're going to hit things. No, Phil is
your
smooth.
center of gravity is a lot higher when it comes to just being on 2 little blades.
Yeah. So, I figured you'd be a good skater. Can you spin?
Can you do a triple Lindy?
Nah, you're pushing it there. I can actually go and stop and not hug the walls. So.
Oh, I'm impressed.
Wow.
Yeah, James can't do that.
I can go.
No,
I just can't stop. I can go. I just can't stop. Remember, she took me rollerblading once. Oh my God.
Oh, it was awful. Everyone just cleared out and he grabbed his arm around a telephone pole and whipped around. Oh my God. It was so ugly.
I had like red marks on my arm from grabbing. I had like creosote that they coat the telephone poles with. I had it on my arm and it was bloody. And it was only like our 4th or 5th date or something like that. I was so embarrassed.
It was like out of a movie. I saw him going down the hill and I kept saying to him, the brake is on the back, because on a rollerblade, the brake is on the back.
Yeah.
On an ice skate, the brake is on the front, just like a roller skate. Not with a rollerblade.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, brake in the back, brake in the back. He was going down this boardwalk. Everyone cleared. Everyone. It was like, oh my gosh.
Ladies were grabbing their kids.
Yep. It was like in Huntington
Dogs
Beach.
were running. Cats were screeching. It was ugly.
I was so glad you did.
That's pretty much. I definitely made the noise. I wasn't screaming because I didn't want to scream on the date, but inside I was shrieking. So
I remember just looking, my eyes were so big. I was like, he's going to wipe out. Like, he's going to hurt people. He's going to hurt himself. And when you grab that, he grabbed the telephone pole out of sheer fear that he was going to ram into somebody.
I did. I was afraid I was going to hurt somebody. I knew I was getting hurt no matter what. So I just didn't want to,
Your arm was bloody.
Yeah.
I felt so bad for you.
I know.
But we never did that again.
We never did that again. I'm a brute sports kind of guy. That's it, I like, running into things and, all that. So,
okay, so ice skating around the lake.
Ice skating around the lake. There's also a toboggan chute that is converted ski jump. And I would love to do this. This would be awesome.
Crazy.
It sends you and your sled all the way down to Mirror Lake, and you can slide over 1,000 feet out onto the ice. Pretty awesome. That's a sled ride.
That's dangerous.
It is, and it sounds amazing.
No, I'm not doing that.
You would not do that.
I'll ice skate with the Olympic hopefuls. I'm not tobogganing in the air across the city. Whatever you.
I think you'd be good at it after our snowmobile adventure back in Idaho.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we'll put a tag up for that episode so people can reflect on that.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I do not want to even think about that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's talk real quick. Lake Placid. Demographics, statistics, 2,300 of the whitest people you'll ever see in your life.
Legitimately, because the sun is out, but nobody's sunbathing.
Yeah, it's 30 days a night up there, I think, in the winter. And so overall cost of living is lower, but the cost of groceries is higher. A little more trucking involved to get all your groceries up there in the mountains. Median home cost is around $325,000. That seems low, doesn't it?
I would agree. The houses there were enormous.
They were 7 figures plus, many of them.
But the truth is, when you were driving, you would, here's my guess. Let me finish my sentence. You were driving, you would see a shack, and then you'd see a multi-million-dollar house. So my guess is, from what you're saying now, the shack is $350,000. Yeah. It's not a cheap place to live.
It's not, but
I mean, if you want to, if you want a house that's falling down for $350, you can find it.
I mean, it's probably an old house, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath type house.
Yeah.
And has probably been rented out for about 40 years.
Yeah, agreed.
Kind of thing.
Agreed.
Speaking of rent for a studio to a 2-bedroom usually runs $900 to $2,000 a month, which does not seem high, but let's factor in that many of the people working up there are in the tourism industry, probably not getting paid, 6 figures a year.
Yeah.
Ski instructors are probably making a little more, but how much more?
Right.
So it is, I think, all in all, it kind of evens out.
Okay.
I found a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house on 7 acres for around $500,000. And I thought that was a good price.
That is a good price.
But I also found a 600 square foot house on 5 acres for $400K. So property ranges very wildly.
600 square feet. Was that a double wide? I bet you it was.
It was like a 1-bedroom house.
600 square feet.
600
That's
square
like
feet.
nothing.
Yeah. And then, obviously Mirror Lake ranges from lakefront property is 1.2 to $8 million, depending on how much you have lying around in the bank.
The 1.2 on Mirror Lake has got to be tiny.
Small.
Yes, because all those houses were magnificent and Mirror Lake is beautiful.
Yeah.
It really, I can't say any water community because it's not every water community, but most communities that are surrounded by water or on water, they're usually vacation properties. And Lake Placid was no different. It started off as a vacation place for people that lived in New York.
Yeah.
Do you know who started? Okay, here's a fun fact. Do you know who started basically the winter sports there?
I do know because I found it in my research.
Are you
but
serious?
I'm going to yield. You tell everyone.
Melville Dewey.
Yep.
Who invented the Dewey Decimal System. There's one for you, Phil. Put that in your back pocket.
The Dewey Decimal System. It's kind of like film, only for libraries where they organize.
Yeah.
They still use the Dewey Decimal System, I believe, in certain libraries. I think they do. Or do you think they're all...
I'm sure they do. Yeah.
No, I think they still use
for actual books.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who actually cracks one anymore. I mean, I read so much stuff in digital form.
Okay, when you go to the Library of Congress, it's the Dewey Decimal System.
It is. Yeah.
So he invented that, and then he came to Lake Placid and started to cultivate winter sports there, and he soaked a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
Created a club and all of that. Other adults that wanted to bring winter sports, they all, pooled their money basically and created this private club where they did, I don't know what you did back in the 1800s because it was 1895. Yeah. But, they did fundraisers, whatever the heck they did to bring people up to that mountain to ski, to ice skate, to snowmobile.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
To get out of the city.
Melville Dewey.
Melville. Rockin' Lake Placid. I love it. You know who else lived there for a time?
Tell me, James. Who lived there for a time?
A man named John Brown, which is a really basic name, but we all learned about him in history books because he was one of the abolitionists that led Harper's Ferry raid in Kansas in the middle of the Civil War.
He came all the way from upstate New York to Kansas.
Yeah, so if you go to Lake Placid, there's a John Brown farm, state historic site. It's a freed slave utopian experiment that was started way back in his day.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, the Civil War, fortunately, in my view, went our way. So, it wasn't it didn't remain a utopian experiment, but yeah, he was actually from that area.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
a lot of free thinkers up there, it seems.
Yeah. It's interesting now because when we were driving through, though, I mean, I saw a few Trump signs up there.
No, I agree.
So
yeah.
I don't know
Things have changed since 1895.
I don't know if it's the same utopian experiment it was back then, but
No.
anyway, we're not going to get into that today. Since 1999, another interesting fact, the Ironman Lake Placid Triathlon is the second oldest one in North America, the first one being in Hawaii. But
What year
it's
was
a
that?
big deal. Since 1999, I think.
Wow, that's
something like that.
okay.
Yeah. And for you pop music fans out there, Lana Del Rey is from Lake Placid.
Get out of here.
Straight up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good find. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Huh, okay.
So anyway, that's it. I think I'm good on Lake Placid. How about you?
I liked it a lot. I didn't think the food was great.
It wasn't.
Yeah, my food adventures were not fantastic. Could you live there?
I could live in that area. I could totally live. I wouldn't want to live in the body of Lake Placid, but we saw so many great houses on the lakes. Yes, I could totally live there is a short answer, but I cannot afford to live there where I want to live.
Yeah.
So I guess the answer ultimately is no, I couldn't. But
you're really far away from everything. Even in the surrounding towns that we went into to have, like I said, a lunch or grab a coffee, you're really out there.
I know. It's so beautiful and it's so alluring, but then at the same time, it's kind of like, well, okay, we've been here 4 months. Now what do we do?
And New York is really far.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, let's just take a train to New York. It's hours.
Yeah. And you don't snowmobile anymore. And I don't ski anymore.
No.
So,
I know. What would we do during the winter?
I know.
You get only
We'd be the worst kind of like residents there.
There's only so many
They'd be like, does anyone see the Gordons? We should do a welfare check on them up there on Gordon Mountain, for crying out loud.
I know. You'd be typing, what's that? What's in the Shining? No, what's he typing?
Oh yeah.
What was he typing?
All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
You'd be typing that all winter, and I'd be out trying to like make another snowman.
Uh-huh.
Come out here. Come out here.
Come on, we need some fresh air.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want it.
No, yeah. I don't know. I liked it, but I feel the same way as you do. It was a little too far out. It was a little too, I don't know. No, I don't know.
We didn't get to visit there this time, but we are probably more, from what people tell me, we are probably more like Saratoga Springs type people.
Oh, I don't even know what that is. What is that?
That's in upstate New York.
No, I know, but what is it? What is it like?
Oh, I just think there's more to do there. There's more of a
more activities.
There's a theater and
okay.
They have all that stuff too.
Okay.
But I just think I'm not an avid skier or ice skater, so that knocks me out of the box when it comes to Lake Placid.
Yeah, it's definitely for the sports enthusiast.
Yeah.
100%. So
winter sports enthusiasts, or there's a lot of boating and fishing and stuff on the lake during the summer. But yeah, if you're not I know there are people that are going to hear this and be like, what do you mean there's nothing to do? There's so much outdoor activity here.
It is.
And that's true. There's a lot of hiking and all that other stuff.
Buy yourself a Subaru,
yeah,
load up and go to Lake Placid and have a lot of fun.
Once in a while you want a nice hoagie or something like a New York deli sandwich. And where are you going to find that there?
Got to go further south.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's going to do it for this week. What do you say?
I think so as well.
Okay, let's take them out.
Empty nest, full tank.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.